Neil Gaiman fans, rejoice! I'm here today to tier rank all of Neil Gaiman's novels with a twist. And the twist is that I am going to tier rank these novels on a bell curve. Because of course, as a Neil Gaiman fanatic, I want to give all these a nest, throw them up there. But of course, there's got to be some winners and losers today. And before we get going, someone needs to go talk to Neil Gaiman. Just pull him aside and be like, bro, Sandman, the American God series, really good. Thank you for being a part of those. But where the hell are the novels? You literally have one of the greatest storytelling minds in the world, and you've wasted over a decade when you could have maybe been going toward a canonical status. But I understand that Neil Gaiman seems to like that writer celebrity lifestyle a little bit, so that's cool. Like, good for him. But we want some more novels, Neil. But let's hop into the first one, which is Stardust. And I'm going to give Stardust a low A because I'm sure, as you know, this book glows off the page. This is one of the first books where the prose really just shine. And as I was reading that, I was like, oh my God, this is like beautiful. Like, there's a lot of older writing that can have that beauty and have that flow, but it was one of the first, 21st century novels that really glowed off the page. And if you guys want to comment down below what you guys would rank these, please do, because I'm really interested, because I can tell a lot about a person, what Neil Gaiman novels they like and dislike, and try to do it on the bell curve, try to maybe even rank them. So Stardust is going to get an A because the story is really good. If we're talking about a fairy tale story, Neil Gaiman does it really good. I feel like this almost surpasses, this is like the successor of The Princess Bride. And I wish, as a teacher, that more of my students would read this book instead of a lot of the crap that they're working with now. Because this book, even though it does, it's a romantic book, it pushes love, it does it in a very base way, in a very even mature way, but it's still fantastical, it's still fun, and I feel like that's what's really important. I'm all about fan fiction smut and all of that, but you have to balance that out with some beautiful writing like this. So next on our list, we have Neil Gaiman, I think Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett's novel, Good Omens. And I'm going to give this one surprisingly a C. This was written in 1990, really before I feel like Neil Gaiman started getting his writing chops going in terms of novels. And I know this is going to be a controversial pick because I would probably have given this a B or an A, but I just reread it and it doesn't really hold up in the ways that I thought it would, because you're looking at Terry Pratchett. I'm a Discworld, I read at least 10 of the Discworld series books by Terry Pratchett. I like Terry Pratchett. Of course, I love Neil Gaiman. But when I look at the combination and how it reads, it has some lagging. It doesn't just have the complete wholesomeness and complexity to really outrank some of the books on this list. Even though I think this is an S, even though I think this is a 4.5 out of 5 stars on a normal basis, some of these other books are going to beat this out. So tell me I'm wrong now, because I know that like Good Omens is like the pride and joy of the Neil Gaiman fanatics out there. So next we have The Ocean at the End of the Lane. And I'm going to give this one a C too, even though I liked the novel and I felt like it liked the story. Of course, it's a little bit of an easier book. It doesn't really stick out to me more than a lot of these other novels on the list. I think you guys would agree that this isn't his pinnacle work. Once again, even though I would rate this a 4.5 out of 5, I don't think that The Ocean at the End of the Lane makes the cut. So next we have the Interworld series, and we'll talk about, and this is a close one. And I feel bad about giving The Ocean at the End of the Lane a C still. I'm still a little bit shook on that. But I'm gonna have to give the Interworld series a B, because just the act of having 3 novels and it gets complete, I feel like they did a pretty good job between the 3 of them. I very much enjoyed the series, and I got more into it than The Ocean at the End of the Lane. Next we're not going to do Anansi Boys yet, because we have to do the prequel, or the first book of that, which is American Gods. And I really feel like American Gods is still Neil Gaiman's, not to just be not to be as atypical with this as possible, really the pinnacle Neil Gaiman book. It accomplishes everything that you need to accomplish in the book. It has a very unique storyline, especially for back then, inspired by Harlan Ellison's Deathbird stories. Go check out my book review on that. If you guys want to see some of the best short story writing around, go look at Deathbird Stories by Harlan Ellison. That was the inspiration for this book. And American Gods it's a classic, man. There are so many plot twists, and I just reread this and it actually blew my mind a little bit, but that because there were some sections for instance, I remembered, and there's no spoilers in here also. There were certain sections that I thought were going to be more intense, that I remembered being more intense, but they weren't. But because it just got built up so well. Like for instance, one of this isn't really spoiler, the tree scene. Like it was short, but like you got through it pretty fast for the build up to it. There's a lot of revelations and connections to the characters because of, obviously mythology. It's funny, it's witty. It basically is like a novelization of almost a Sandman concept of like being able to bring in all these different things. It does a really good job, and I really love the magical realism element to it. I think this is when Neil Gaiman was really peaking. And I actually messed up. This was written in 2001, and Stardust was written in 1999, so that was actually a 20th century novel. But you could, if you look at Neil Gaiman's career, you know, after writing Good Omens, Neverwhere, Stardust, The Sandman, you know, he was probably working harder at this point in his life on writing than any other time, because soon, you know, the fame and other things started happening. And, you know, obviously he had kids who were growing up. So in 2001, I feel like this is where Neil Gaiman is peaking. I mean, this book won a Hugo, Nebula, and Locus Award. That's really insane. So the sequel to this, or like extension of this, is Anansi Boys. And I'm going to give this one an A. I actually really like this one. I know a lot of people have problems with this text and like where it goes, but I actually really connected to the characters in this one. I really felt like, you know, even because, you know, some of the characters were a little bit more detached than maybe the Shadow Moon was in American Gods, but I felt like the story carried itself, and it was a very interesting sequel because it didn't need to have all the same elements. Some characters were brought back, but it really worked on its own, and it really developed on its own. It didn't have to rely on like everything from American Gods. It really could just be a standalone. It really is a standalone novel. You could literally give this book to someone and it's just a good book to read. So next on the list, we have Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman. And this one is interesting because he revised it 2 times. Apparently he first wrote it as in conjunction for the series that came out. If anyone's ever seen that really crappy Neverwhere series on the British one, I mean, it's pretty good. It's all right. And so then he revised it 2 times to bring it up to snuff. And I feel like he did. It lags a little bit. It has some problems, but I would throw it in the B category for sure. Because if we're looking here, like, I feel like Neverwhere, really, when I read it, like, does a better job than Good Omens. It keeps me more interested in the story. Even though, like, I'm trying to defend, you know, my Good Omens pick here, I feel like Neverwhere is a very magical one. And once again, it was really at a time where Gaiman was peaking. You know, that Neverwhere, Stardust, American Gods period is a time when he was really living walking the walk as a writer. And I'm really interested to see what Neil Gaiman releases next, because you would think it would be better, but, you know, if you take time off and you're not really taking things seriously, then how, you know, can you keep improving as a writer? Because, you know, the last real novel he wrote on his own was The Ocean at the End of the Lane. And like you guys see from me, I gave that one a C. So I feel like the last good book he wrote was this, Anansi Boys, in 2005. Obviously, once again, all these books are good, but like the most like book that really fit with his style. So like we haven't really seen Neil Gaiman popping off really hard since 2005. That's 17 years. So like, can he do it again? You know, that's a big question, you know. That's like, and because, you know, if we look at the last 2 books he released, you know, the Graveyard book was in 2008. But 2017 with Norse mythology, I'm gonna give it a D. You know, I enjoyed the book. I would give it a 3 out of 5, 3.5 out of 5. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed his take on everything and like bringing Norse mythology to I liked the effort, but it really just kind of fell flat. It was a book I enjoyed. I'm never going to reread it again unless I really need to get in, but I would read other stuff if I wanted to study Norse mythology. I took a class, mythology class, a graduate mythology class, and we had a whole freaking unit. I had to read all these different books on Norse mythology, and I found them more captivating, even though they were more dry than this book. You know, which is kind of sad. And I'm going to give the same for the Graveyard book. I'm going to throw this one down here at a D. And I like this book. This book brought the child out in me. But I was reading it, you know, when I read books like this, maybe this is just me. Like I said, this is my list. I can't get into it as much. Like I can get lost in the magic, and I enjoy reading it, and it's fun to read it. But, you know, if I'm saying like, was that good? Was that monumental? You know, no, that was just a fun read. You know, the Graveyard book, Norse mythology, even The Ocean at the End of the Lane, they're fun reads. They're good reads. But are they like change your life reads like American Gods and Stardust were to me? Like after I read those, I like got taken to another level of standards for writing and for prose in general. Do you feel that way with the Graveyard series? Excuse me, the Graveyard book. So if you guys want to see me tier rank some more classic novels, go check out the video. That is right here. Peace.